Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of Keto Chat. I am your host, Carol Freeman, the creator of the Fast Track to Keto Success Program. I am a certified nutritionist and all that other good stuff. And today in studio, we have a really cool interview with some awesome people that are here from Montana. Go Roam Free, sugar-free bison bits. We'll talk about all their different products that they've got here. But hey, tell us who you guys are.
All right. Well,
welcome to my cozy couch.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us. So, I'm Brittany Masters, and I'm a co-owner with John of Roam Free Bison Bites. And I am actually a Seattle native who was working a corporate job and not really loving life all that much, gaining a little bit of weight, found the keto diet, decided, screw this, I'm going to move to Montana, met John, and start a keto product. So wow. That's a really quick, introduction, but yeah, that's kind of where I came from.
That's awesome. I'm gonna ask you, and then in a minute we're gonna go back to this move to Montana spontaneous thing. But
it's a kind of an interesting story.
Okay.
Yeah. So my name's John Sepp. I met Brittany, who got me into keto. I was already I was raising bison at the time, although I didn't start there. I actually grew up overseas in Norway.
Okay.
And for most of my life, came back here and graduated high school in the last few years of high school, and then joined the military. And so I went to the Air Force Academy, spent a lot of time moving around. But when I was growing up, my parents were in the military, which is how we ended up in Norway. Prior to moving there as a really young child, we do these annual cross-country trips, driving across South Dakota every time we were getting moved around. And so we'd always stop off and see the bison out there. And, it was kind of a strange transition. I knew I'd always wanted to raise bison, but when I got out of the military, it really became serious that this is what I was going to do. And so I met Brittany, and everything kind of jived together with our lifestyles of, health and fitness, eating really well, the ability to have bison, which is a really limited resource in this country, and being able to bring that forward to people in a way that, this product actually used to be on everybody's table in America at one time. And so to make that happen again and be kind of the first pioneers to do that, it's a really exciting adventure and journey that we're on right now.
Oh my gosh, as you guys are talking of so many questions to ask you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're living out in Montana. Do you guys live the prairie lifestyle with no water and running electricity? Or I've never been to Montana.
Yeah.
Actually, we do.
It's how it started.
Yeah, actually. It is how it started. We live in the very center of the Flathead Indian Reservation. Although I'm not native. Brittany has some native roots, but not from the tribe that we're currently there. We own some fee simple land in there, which is the land was homesteaded prior to it becoming a reservation. So there's small plots in there that don't belong to the reservation, and this has kind of been passed down. And so this is where we decided to make our start with bison, or I did prior to meeting Brittany. And so the ranch, it's very remote. The closest town has about 200 people. It is an off-grid ranch. We, use windmill power, solar power.
Oh, that's so cool.
All these kinds of things to run the ranch. And, of course, we're on wells, and we have some natural warm springs on the property as well that we draw from. So we kind of use all these elements together in raising the bison to also have a self-sufficient ranch out there.
And we have internet.
Okay.
So
we do have internet.
Windmill powered energy and internet.
We
are the best of both worlds.
Yeah, no cell phone reception, but we were the first people in this area and valley. We just happen to be lucky that they're laying a very long fiber of internet out there.
Oh, cool.
We got to be
Can you imagine
people.
not having internet in this
I was going to ask you, carrier pigeons that take the messages.
We were doing smoke signals for a while. So.
But that was my one requirement. No.
Can you make emoticons out of smoke signals?
Right.
Can you make a winky eye? And...
Exactly.
So what made you move from Seattle to Montana?
Besides meeting John, that was kind of the main thing. But
okay. I thought you'd moved there and then met him, but it was
okay. So actually, John was running the ranch and was trying to do the raw meat sales. Okay. So he was shipping frozen meat with dry ice, and people had to pay $20 a pound just in shipping to get bison meat. And He was working on it, and, you know, as a startup rancher, one that didn't inherit land, having to pay all that down and fencing, you know, he was really just barely breaking even, I could say, or maybe not breaking even.
Yeah.
And so he started a construction company in Seattle and was working here part-time to pay off the ranch in Montana, which is not ideal, right?
Well, it's a labor of love then, right? If you're willing to put that much into it.
Sure.
Hey, there are way easier ways to make money than raising bison. Trust me, that's not why we're in it. And so anyways, he was here, and that's how I met him. And I'm a business person, entrepreneur by trade.
Okay.
And so he was saying, you know, I'm having issues with shipping and really logistics. The product is phenomenal, but you know, got logistics issues, and I'm always interested in that. So I'm like trying to dig in, and you know, he's like, I just want to make bison a staple of American diet like it used to be. Like it used to be on everybody's table. We were way healthier for it. The environment was healthier for it. And so how do I, you know, make bison more available? And I had already done a food startup at one point. Okay. Which we won't get into because it didn't quite work. Well, but I learned. I learned a ton, and I learned the most thing is the biggest lesson that I learned was to find people that actually care about health versus care about the end result, which is, you know, profit. And so that was a main lesson learned there. But anyways, back to this, I decided, hey, you know, we can package the product, we can put it on retail shelves, we can sell it through gyms, we can sell it to people that care, you know, and doing a dried product, you know, was much more logistically viable.
So your primary value proposition is bison, and it's sugar free.
That's
absolutely.
Right.
So and not just sugar free, carb free.
Carb free and sugar free.
Yeah.
So talk about, you guys were sharing this with me. I met these guys at Ancestral Health Symposium in Seattle a couple weeks ago, and so share with us the challenges of making a sugar free jerky. Apparently that's not an easy thing. Like they don't want that out there.
Apparently not. It was shocking to me, you know, and I had seen all of these jerkies, and I was turning over the back, and sugar, aspartame, you know, other variations of sugar, even fruit, which, you know, cranberries and things like that. Yeah. And I'm like, why in the world isn't there a sugar-free product when all I wanted was like a steak to go? That's what I wanted. And I couldn't find it. And so, and I had started making my own jerky for years, actually. I traveled a bunch in my previous job. So I was dehydrating my own meat, and it was, you know, great. And so when we submitted, we just made a bunch of recipes in our kitchen. I think John and I went through like 30 recipes of different flavors of jerky. And we submitted those to the USDA, and we got back, well, you have to put sugar in it. And we're like, you don't have to, you know? And they're like, no, you do. It actually preserves the meat. And we're like, I don't know, I've been making jerky. John's tried it. We're okay. Why? What do you mean that you have to have sugar in the product? And so we actually tested it. We were like, we made one with sugar. We made one without. The one that has sugar is completely moldy, and the one that isn't is fine. Yeah. And we're still, I can't remedy that for you. I'm not sure why they truly believe that sugar is imperative, but I think it's just nobody's ever done it. You know, nobody's ever decided they didn't want sugar in their product. And then
it's a cheaper and easier way to preserve, rather than like the only thing that we add to our meat in here. And we don't just use trim, I'll say, by the way, which is a majority of meat products that you'll find out there. And trim is just kind of like the leftovers of the animal that aren't the quality cuts. They'll sell those normally, and then only use like the lesser cuts of what they're going to dry out and put in there. So what you end up with is this like really rough textured, kind of difficult to eat product that the nutritional value of even those cuts is not as high as the other ones that are better. So you know, in where I was going with all that is, you know, we use the highest quality cuts, and the only thing we add to this is organic spices. And basically, if you dry your product to a certain level and degree, and you take the moisture out of it, you can still get all the health benefits out of everything that you would normally get in, you know, basically what's a 50% dried out product. So, for instance, our package is 2 ounces of meat, it would be like eating a 4-ounce piece of bison, which has a lot of nutrients in it. Yeah. So, by only adding those things and drying it out to a certain degree, you're still able to achieve the same level of shelf stability as somebody who would just be using sugar, which is a really cheap way that you don't have to dry it as long. You don't have to go through all these extra steps to preserve it longer and just pump out a whole bunch more of it. And, we knew if we were going to put something out of the ranch that met our lifestyle, which started as sugar-free and then turned to really just hardcore ketogenic, which revolves around that, but in a much broader sense. We didn't want to just put out something that was better than. We wanted to be optimal and to like truly fit what it is that we believe with our lifestyle to have the healthiest product possible. So that's grass-fed bison that we can ensure the integrity of the supply chain because we're raising it in our backyard with only organic spices. And that's how we ended up at this product.
Nice. Yeah, cool. And it's delicious. I mean, I've eaten every flavor you've got. You've got 4 flavors now, right? Yeah. So, wood-fired pizza.
Yeah, we always get, somebody that's like, what? Wood-fired pizza? Yeah. That's, that was my push in creation because what do you want when you're doing a ketogenic diet? Pizza. I'm always like, the thing you can't have is the thing you want to eat. So
Moroccan heat. Oh, I'm going through the original and the Thai chili ginger.
Thai chili ginger. That's right.
Which I love the you were sharing with me the inspiration for this was actually pho soup, which in Seattle we know the flavors of that and it definitely tastes like that. But the rest of the world doesn't know about pho. You were saying that you had to pick a name that was a little more, recognizable by people.
Yeah. I mean, I love pho. It's something that I order without the noodles. I always go and put, or sometimes I put, those no noodles in there. And so anyways, it's one that I had really, really liked. And turns out most people around the world don't know what pho is. But they know, they've had some Thai dish before. So.
We've got a bubble here in Seattle where there's a lot of pho.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's growing in popularity, so we'll see.
Yeah. So I want to go back too and ask, how did you know from a young age that you wanted to be a bison farmer? Bison rancher, is that what it's
bison rancher. Yeah.
He's pretty firm on the rancher, actually.
I loved all animals growing up as a kid, but especially bison, it was just this, you can tell when you look at them, they're the only surviving mammal in North America from the Ice Age. Okay. That's it. Okay. There's no other animal or mammal except bison that's living, and you can tell they look prehistoric, they look mystical, they kind of look magical, they look really cool. And so I was always fascinated just because of that as a young child. And in particular, in one of these cross-country moves with my family, my mom kind of did the dumb tourist thing and got out and got really close and took a picture of a bison right up next to it. And, that lived on in our family as like this big moment. And I think just the beauty of the animal in that moment kind of stuck with me, that I knew, from a young age that at some point this is what I was going to do, was raise bison. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized just the incredible durability of the animal, but also more importantly, how the entire landscape of North America was formed by this animal, and it continues to be, how important they are, and they're such a keystone species to our prairie, how they're still trying to recover, and how important they are to grasslands. Over any other ungulate or any other large animal, bison are the keystone species that preserves grasslands, which is also one of the most endangered. It is the most endangered ecosystem in North America.
Well, this is an important message to get out there, right? Yeah. Because people are under the impression that red meat is what's destroying our ecosystem. Sure. Right. And killing, it's going to make us all starve to death because we're eating red meat or whatever. And so I didn't even realize that about bison, that they were like, they've been here since the Ice Age.
Yeah.
And that statement, it just couldn't be more wrong. It kind of kills us when we see that message out there in the media that red meat is bad for you. And if we can just break it down simply, 40% of North America was created by bison.
Yeah.
So, and we all know this, right? When you put an animal that has really evolved with an ecosystem and you remove them, stuff goes wrong. I mean, that ecosystem can't survive. And the prairies are made by prairie dogs and bison. And so the whole way that, grass was created was bison stepping in, creating divots in the ground, dropping seeds, and then capturing water. And then that, happened millions and millions of times and created prairies.
And fertilizing the ground as they graze upon grasses, which basically grow outward as they're grazed. And so it was the prairie ecosystems evolved with bison and the way that they ate to grow more and sequester more carbon as these animals grew in numbers. So, at one time we had hundreds of millions of them roaming that were just constantly improving these grasslands, which is a majority of our country before it kind of all got settled. And of course, when you take them out of that, and you have unconscious grazers or domestic animals that are eating grasses, not that they can't replicate the same type of system with bison of, stepping in the ground and sequestering carbon, they just simply, won't do it as well. So if you remove that, your grasslands just aren't going to continue to flourish.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What is the difference between bison and buffalo?
It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good one. We get that a lot. It's nothing. So it's just, yeah.
It's a really easy answer,
Yeah.
So it's really funny, though, because I remember as a little kid in, I don't even know, history class or whatever class I had in a small town I had that was not very good education.
Yeah.
Like, buffalo were extinct. Like, that was what I learned from a very young age. And I was like, oh, how sad that this animal's extinct. But then...
Almost.
And then it was like, well, wait, these people have some. Like,
So bison, there used to be about anywhere between, people say 60 to 100 million roaming North America, and then they went down to about 300 in the late 1800s.
Oh, wow.
That was actually a way that the European settlers could control the Native American population, because Native Americans subsisted on bison for their food, shelter, and tools. So if you could remove that from, their resource pool, they had nothing left. And it's a really unfortunate part of our history, but it's something I think we need to recognize so we can figure out how to fix it, because, it did allow, us to grow in North America and become, commercialized and everything, but it wrecked a really important part of the ecosystem, and we're still suffering from that today. So, that's part of the mission, right? Is to bring bison back. And so back to your question of bison or buffalo, it's so tied to Native American, because, right, what did we call them? Indians, right? Because we thought they were Indians. It's the same thing with bison and buffalo. So they had buffalo in Europe, and they, like ox and things like that, water buffalo. And so they came over and were like, that looks kind of like a buffalo. Let's call it buffalo.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where the term caught on. Just like, we think we're in India, we'll call them Indians.
Okay.
And so it's kind of a similarity. So it's
bison's the real name. Buffalo's the Europeanized
it's like
version.
calling it a canine versus a dog. Something similar.
Okay.
So but nowadays they're both correct. So when we use them interchangeably, buffalo, bison.
Yeah. So
cool. Good bit of trivia there. So,
there you go.
Yeah. What's a day in the life of a buffalo rancher?
Well, ours is maybe a little more complicated than when I just started the ranch, because we have this consumer packaged goods company running as well. So we run the ranch in tandem with this. And more importantly, we're not just, you don't just let bison go out in a pasture and they're supposed to do their thing and they make grass better magically, right?
Okay.
So
they
part
used
of this,
to.
they used to back, but when they roamed the prairie and there was, massive herds of them running around, you also had predators that followed them, human and wolves, right? Which were the main predator. And it was this action combined with like the wild instinct of bison, which group naturally very close together, closer than any other bovine species. They graze in a very tight group with a really established hierarchy. They're very intelligent animals. It's that action of them closely grazing, feeding, and then being moved by predators. And so they'll, bison stampede, right? They'll stampede vast distances. They can run 20, 40 miles in a day, no problem. They're very resilient, and now start grazing in a new area. That area that they did graze down and fertilize and create all these divots in then flourishes even more, and it gives it a chance to rest to do that. that process has now been boiled down to a modern term called holistic management that lets you grow grass in the same effective way. But bison, if not forced to move, are not going to do that themselves.
Okay.
We're not out there hunting them, and
There's no wolves chasing them anymore.
we have occasional wolves on our property, but they'll bypass and go to beef cows. So we work very labor intensively to move bison between miniature pastures to mimic that every single day. And so
like the Joel Salatin On the Horse Dilemma, if you've read that book, talking about strategically moving them around. And,
correct. Yeah. So it's that movement is what, you're able to build topsoil, put more carbon back in, and have better grass, which creates better water, just a whole number of trickle-down effects. So it's that daily process is very intense. So aside from doing that, I mean, that's a
day in the life. It's
that's
just
a day in the life.
moving buffalo
moving bison, from one pasture to the next, and depending on the time of year, you have different hormones. They're birthing, they're breeding, and so you're contending with all these different things, managing the ranch, and at the same time, they're still wild animals. So they will, the saying is, you can make a buffalo go anywhere it wants to go, and you're not out there. You're not out there like whooping and hollering and being a cowboy like you are if you're moving cows. It's a very silent kind of process that you train them to be moving like this.
So you mind meld with the buffalo.
That's right. Yeah. You ask them nicely. Please come, be my friend, stay in this one little acre. But really, it's I had no idea getting into it. I mean, what I was in for. But we've got basically this long wire that we just move around, and then you open a pasture door, and you tie them in, and it's like the most silent part of the day. It's usually pretty early in the morning, and it's just dead quiet because they react. They'll run right through a fence if you're loud, or even if how I'm talking right now would be too much.
Yeah, it's called like low stress handling, which is what we practice to keep them very calm, moving, and quiet and happy, because it doesn't matter what fence you build, they're like tanks, they'll run through it if they want to. So it's all about keeping them as happy as possible every time.
Yeah, so happy bison.
Happy bison or healthy bison.
Yeah.
And when I say we, John's moving them, and I'm standing outside the fence with my phone ready to call 911 just in case anything happens.
Wow.
This is actually it's a true story. I sometimes film, and I'm like doing my social media stuff. Yeah. But it's not. It is kind of a dangerous job, to be honest. They are still wild animals, and you have to be very diligent and on your feet, and be able to read the animal. The mind melding thing. I mean, we laugh, but it's sort of true that you have to read what their their body language, because the wrong moment can really be detrimental. I mean, we know people that have not lived to tell the story, and it's it's kind of a real thing. So
it's really interesting too, because I have a friend who is she does therapy with horses, equine therapy, and I've learned a lot about that, about how horses are prey, and it sounds like the bison are as well, and they're really, really sensitive to other people's energies and what's going on with them, and so it sounds like a lot of that. And I've done work with her in the horse pen or whatever, where you actually have to be this really calm energy, and they'll come to you if you're really calm, but if you're freaked out and anxious, they want to get the heck away from you. So it sounds like it's very similar, that you're doing actually your own meditative therapy as you're working with them to get them be in that calm state yourself. So
totally.
That's a really good comparison, actually. I mean, I had horses growing up as well, and I would say it's very, very similar. I mean, a horse couldn't hurt you as bad as the bison. That would be the only difference. They don't have horns. I mean, you have to know the animal, and I'm very much still learning, which is why I'm outside of the fence. And I'm also a little bit of a worrywart, so I want to make sure that if anything goes wrong, I'm right on the ball, But John's much more calm and calm, cool, collected is how he is out there. So
cool.
Yeah.
So since they're still wild animals, there's no buffalo milk being collected then, right?
No, not quite yet. Maybe one or two bison out there that have been trained since little babies that you might be able to get something from. But I'm dairy free anyways.
Okay.
So,
Well, I was in Catalina Island in California this weekend, and I noticed at all the restaurants and bars, they had this buffalo milk drink.
Yeah.
And I was like, where is I don't know if you know the origins. I didn't ask anybody. It was a very curious thing, but it was like, of course, it was like all sugary.
I don't know.
Something or whatever in it. And,
I'll have to ask. A number of years ago, actually met the guy who manages the herd out there, on Catalina Island. Which has a really interesting history in and of itself.
Okay.
But I'll have to ask him. I've never heard of it. So.
Well, yeah. So maybe that's why I didn't realize there were even bison out there on the island. So that must be why. So yeah, if you know why, like comment down below.
Yeah.
If you know the story of the buffalo milk drinks that they have, and they're definitely cocktails. They were not.
Okay.
They were not like a smoothie or something like that. And it didn't have any buffalo milk in it.
Got it.
Oh, it didn't.
Yeah.
No. It was like I think it was like a white cocktail that they named.
Oh, like a White Russian?
Milk.
Got it.
Probably something like that. Yeah, exactly.
There is an alcohol called Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe they just named it, a cocktail. And I have heard of people using like water buffalo for milk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So they're much more domesticated. They're not really they're not a bison. They're not a North American bison. So maybe that's...
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
It's a big mystery. We'll solve it for you guys. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. Get back to you on that one.
Right. Well, so obviously for me, it's pretty obvious that like the more ancient a food source is for us, the better aligned it is with our body, the more nutrients it's going to have. These, most of the common food crops and even frankly most of the cows that we eat really, been hybridized and refined and probably are much more nutrient poor than these ancient species. And so have you done any investigating into the nutrient profile, of bison meat versus, cow, for example, or?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, just, if you want to do a really deep dive, those studies are probably out there.
Okay.
Just at a very high level, bison, just even from the structure of how the meat is put together and the way the animal's built, is their fat is what's called intrafiber. So it's in between the fibers of muscle, whereas beef, which is still a bovine, but very loosely related, over thousands of years ago, is extra fiber meat. And that's why you see like kind of marbling in meat and those kinds of things. And you get, that's kind of a real determining factor between a domesticated bred animal, which has been genetically manipulated with breeding over generations and generations and generations to create that optimal, meat pattern that people liked, versus, wild animals will not have that. So, think of any wild animal, they're going to have more like an intrafiber fat structure in there.
Okay.
And so it does a whole bunch of different things when you cook it and when you consume it, and the types of fats that are in it are going to be different as well, because all those things kind of go along with how the animal filters and grows fat on their body. And bison grow much slower, and because they grow slower, the nutrients are packed in tighter. And just to give you a really loose perspective, it does have a lot more in there compared to like if you were to put a beef steak and a bison steak down on the same table of the same size. Bison's going to be much more dense with vitamins, nutrients, minerals, things that you're going to get out of that.
Nice.
So,
Cool.
Yeah. And if you're subscribed to the ancestral way of eating, as John and I do, and I know you do, it is going to be the most premium protein you can get. It's unchanged since our ancestors ate it thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
So I like to even think about like an apple today isn't the same as it was 1,000 years ago.
In my lifetime it's changed.
In your lifetime, I mean, it's incredible. The food that we have is much more high in carbohydrates and less nutrient dense than it was just 100 years ago. For example, and so bison has really is one of the only food sources that I can think of that is unchanged since our ancestors ate it, and so that got me really interested in the animal way before I met John. I was eating it as my form of a superfood, and I truly believe that it is. I mean, if you can look at all the vitamins and minerals. I mean, whether it's iron, whether it's protein, whether it's omega-3s, it's all going to be vastly better for you than any other protein source. And so, if we can start calling bison the superfood, I can get behind that,
All meat really is a superfood, it's going to have all that combined and packed, but if you want the optimal, in our opinion, bison is that, it's the most optimal source you can have of that protein. So.
I know in a minute we're going to talk, I've got talk about future ideas you guys have or what you have brewing coming ahead. But
Yeah.
I also want to go back though and talk about like your keto transition. Like what,
Sure.
what were the reasons that how did you find it? What did you notice as far as health and mental clarity? I mean, we got the normal list we can go down, but I'm curious about your own experience of it.
Mine was sort of interesting. I mean, I was a gymnast in high school. I was rail thin, never had any issues. And then, I was working really hard, getting my MBA and working full time and traveling a bunch. And actually my trigeminal nerve here went numb.
Oh.
Which is sort of interesting. I'm still working to repair it. But I had searched for everything to try to figure out, what had happened. And I was gaining weight. I, was feeling like crap. I could barely get through the day. And I had to take a hard look at, my diet. And I did. And what I actually went to, because I was traveling a bunch and I was in Thailand I was training, I had a marketing training course that I was teaching in Thailand of all places. And my boss at the time, who was amazing, was like, you need a break. Like, can you just go, take some time off? And so I went to a fitness retreat in Phuket. And they handed me a buttery bulletproof coffee, and I was terrified of fat.
Oh,
terrified.
Okay.
I wasn't going to touch it.
Yeah.
And they for whatever reason, were the only people to get me to do it. And they said, here, just have a cup of they called it bulletproof. They were at the time using, Dave Asprey's mix. It can be any type, but that's the type they gave me, and I was sold. I mean, I just felt within a few days, my nerves had gotten better, and they're not fully healed. I mean, it's not like not like taking a pill and a prescription, but it was reversing some of the damage. I could think again. I always thought that I was a pretty smart person, but I was starting to feel just like airheadish, if I could say that. And man, it just totally turned me around. And so, I got back home and started doing all the research I possibly could. And figuring out, like, hey, I'm so backwards, I'm sitting here eating, turkey jerky and trying to avoid every, fat. I was steaming everything. I didn't want any kind of fat on anything, and eating a bunch of rice and pasta and, and so, that was my journey. And that was actually a long time ago. I think, gosh, I want to say that was in 2010, maybe 2009. And then I just completely
you were
went
cool
all
before it was cool.
I mean, I mean, it's so funny. I went to Phuket to find this out, right? They were actually two people from Vancouver, Washington, that were running this fitness retreat. It was just a very weird coincidence. But
and Dave Asprey is from Vancouver, Washington.
And he didn't have any of what he has now. It was like you had to watch some like YouTube video of this guy telling you to drink it, and I was like, whatever, but it worked. So that was, I mean, if it works, right? And you just kind of, and it trickled on from there. So, and I, it got me out of a place that was, I really needed to fix my diet. And now I would say I'm not 100%, in ketosis. I like to do cyclical ketosis, and I've found a really good happy medium for me. And then, John, your story.
Yeah, I'm curious, when you heard about her drinking butter in her coffee, did you think she was crazy? Or
a little bit.
Like most people.
So, I didn't know, ketogenic or strict ketogenic or any of those things when I first started. I was a little bit cut off. This was before I got internet at the ranch, So, all I had known, and of course everybody knows this, sugar is just not good for you really in any way, shape, or form. And so a long time ago, about a couple years ago, I had cut sugar out of my diet. And, I had noticed effects in a lot of ways, but particularly prior to becoming a bison rancher, I spent most of my time in the military. I commanded the Air Force's Test Parachutist Program. So that's testing free fall parachutes any kind of parachute you can think of, and that delved just personally into my life of I was very active in base jumping and speed flying and
Have you done those bat suit things?
I have, yeah.
Oh,
So
Yeah, pretty crazy. I can't watch it.
anything that flies or jumps or, like has a magic backpack, I was really into this thing, So with that goes, you're never going to have a perfect record. And so over years of doing this and testing and flying and jumping, I had ended with a variation of injuries, mostly to the leg region. And so
I was going to say, how many bones have you broken?
So
how many times?
quite a few,
Okay.
So I've broken both my legs more than one time, and just a number of other things.
No wonder you're so nervous.
Yeah, I can't.
And of course with that, different various forms of like head trauma, and these things never work out well when you're hitting the ground. So all those things, I just realized taking sugar out of my diet, man, I started to think better, feel better. And I'm not going to say I like instantly started to heal, but since that time, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I've really made some pretty significant leaps and bounds just in, if nothing else, just reducing inflammation. The more I get into like strict keto and continue with that diet, the better I get every day, and I'm super active, so I have to be, able to feel my body and work and fence and move bison and, run this business every day, in addition to having a clear mind. And so, it's not like I had it wasn't, in my opinion, not an extreme traumatic brain injury, but, you're going to have miniature problems that happen in anything in these kinds of accidents. So, in addition, being in ketosis really makes me feel super clear in my mind. So whatever dangerous activity I'm doing, even if I'm in the corrals with the bison, I mean, when you're moving bison in corrals in a tight confined space like that, when you do have to like either doctor them or help them or whatever it might be, you need to maintain absolute clarity of mind and sound body doing that too. And so it just makes sense that, to have every advantage and opportunity to think the fastest, move the fastest, and feel the best about myself, have energy to work all day, and in ketosis, not feeling like I'm hungry and having to stop every 10 seconds is been transformational. So for the business, for raising bison, and just like my health and life in general. And so, Brittany really was the one who taught me a lot more about strict ketosis and getting into there, and that was about a year ago, and since then it's just been a fantastic journey.
Cool.
Because he was avoiding sugar at all costs, but he didn't realize that there were sugar in things like oats and that
just carbohydrates in general, and learning about that and how they affect your body. So
he was almost there. We just had to give him the last final leap into ketosis. So.
It's a common story is that, people are naysayers if they've never tried it. And then once you're in ketosis, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is like I just took a super pill. I'm superhuman now. Like, why would I not want to keep using this to my advantage? So,
So
very cool.
It's allowed us to do a lot. I mean, we came up, we did all of this in like, what has it been, 6 months? And so we've just been going all out all day, and truthfully wouldn't be able to do it if our diet wasn't nailed down. So
I always think back, like, if I could go back to school in ketosis, what would life be like? But I'm not going to do it again.
I know. I vowed to never go back to school after that last one. So, but it would have been. Man, we would all be like doctors. We'd have our doctorates or
so super impressive what you guys have done in 6 months here, and so what, give us some teasers. I'm sure your mind is going a mile a minute with all the future product potential ideas. Like, what are you guys, can you give us some hints of things that are to come? Or
absolutely. We are, and so we've got our 4 flavors right now, and we want to go a step beyond. I mean, our ultimate goal is to make optimal products, not better for you, like optimal. And so we want to do an MCT bison bite, so adding in those extra healthy fats to jumpstart ketosis. So, our product is great if you're in ketosis and you want to maintain that and have a kind of a meal replacement or just a snack. But adding MCT will help you jumpstart ketosis.
Yeah,
so
cool.
That's the next line is going to be MCT bison bites, and we're super excited. Our goal is to get it out before the end of the year.
Wow, that's really cool because it's there's various meat products out there. You guys are the only one that's sugar free, but they're all pretty low fat, right? Just because that's kind of the type of meat that makes a jerky or something like that. And so to have a meat bite that has some fat in it will be pretty darn cool to have.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you'll get the best of the nutrients of the animal, the best protein source that you can possibly have. And then we're also sourcing the absolute best in terms of those triglycerides that we're going to put in there to, I mean, keep you really solid in ketosis.
And they taste really good.
Yeah, they taste really good.
I mean, you add fat, it tastes good. You know, so we've tested them, we've made them in our kitchen, and they're a delight.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Well, and what do you guys have for a vision or mission with your company? It kind of sounds like it's like just get high quality products and food to people.
I mean, it's really like 2 in 1. You know, it's this product. It's being able to kind of have a circle that's feeding itself here. Of we're regenerating land with bison. We're bringing bison back, and we're putting out the most optimal products from that for people. And so the more people that buy the product, the more bison we can have, and the more land we can regenerate, then that filters back on up. So it's a really awesome system that we're really enjoying building, because we can see the potential to be able to kind of change the way food maybe has been traditionally done, where somebody just says, I'm just going to come up with this and then source it from here, and you don't really know where it's coming from. The integrity of your supply chain, it could be coming from anywhere, really. And you don't know how something's been raised. You've not seen an animal since it's hit the ground to when it's going in your mouth. And people have gotten really far away from that in our society, and we have a way to be able to bring that back, put it all in a package, put a stamp on it, and have somebody eat it and ensure, okay, I understand, I know it, and be able to support it in their own lives. And at the end of the day, it's the consumer of bison it's the real hero of the story that's making this happen. Because without people figuring out about bison and eating it, we wouldn't have bison today. Just 98% of them are privately owned, and so creating that economy for bison, having people understand that, is what continues to drive this circle. So
I mean, if we could get more bison on more American tables, Americans would be healthier, our ecosystem would be healthier, and then we'd have more bison. And ultimately, that's the end goal, is to make bison a staple of the American diet again, just like it used to be.
Nice. Cool. I can't wait to see what else is coming. So, and you guys are so right now people can order directly through website. We'll link that below. GoRoamFree.com.
GoRoamFree.com. Yes, absolutely.
And so I'm sure you guys have plans of getting in some local stores as well, right?
We do, yeah. I mean, Seattle's my hometown, so we're going to start here. And, we're in 8 stores in Montana and growing in the western Montana region. But we're definitely, Seattle's been my home for 30 years. So knocking down doors here to see who wants to carry our product. And, we're really focused on those that care about what they eat. So those are going to be your health conscious, socially conscious, and then fitness people. So that's where we're going to stay pretty close to. So.
And people I was really happy when you picked up the package. The first thing you did was turn it over to look at the back. Those are the people that we want to have put this product in their hands. People who actually care and care what they're putting in their body. So
but with their wallet. So.
And they're super delicious. They're really tender too. I mean, we're not eating them on this episode, but they're really, really delicious. I bought one of each from them when I met them, and I tried to wait and save them for a taste test or whatever, but it was in between whatever, and I was like, my son was like, Mom, you ate them. You're supposed to save them for the taste test. I was like, I couldn't wait. They're so delicious.
Thank you. That means a lot to us. We've put a lot of hard work behind the taste and quality, so it means a lot. Yeah. They're not just like some dried out, like you said, the whatever trimmings and not the good quality part of it. So you won't break your teeth on it.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask. Like, are you guys thinking about doing some kind of organ meat type thing, with the, liver and, kidneys and heart and that kind of stuff?
We include those now. I mean, it's, everything is included into this product. So you're getting the benefits of all those things currently.
It's part of why it's so nutrient dense.
Yeah. So to separate that out and say we're going to do one that's like lesser quality, one that's more, that's not we just want to have the very best thing that you can have.
Oh,
so
that's good to know then.
I mean, I don't foresee us like picking and choosing. It's just going to be everything we put out. It'll only be things that we can add to it to like, you know.
I'd never say never, but I think if you, you know, you make an organ meat product, you're probably not going to get it in a lot of people's hands. Maybe. I mean, maybe the mindset is changing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's some pioneers out there doing that. But we want taste and quality. So we'll see.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering, you know, was there anything else that you were hoping I would ask you about or that you wanted to be able to share? Or?
You know, the only thing I think if people are really interested in not just, you know, our product, but beyond that in helping bring bison back as a staple of the American diet, if anybody's interested in that mission, like reach out to us for sure and we'll help you get connected. But also, you know, if you know of a local bison producer in your neighborhood or you know, buy from the producer is what I would say.
Yeah.
It really does help to create a sustainable market for those products, which allows them to reinvest in putting bison back on the land. It's one of the most expensive parts of being a bison rancher is you have to buy the land, and it's you know, pretty high barriers to entry. And if we don't get more young people interested in doing it, more people interested in buying it, we just simply won't have bison on the planet anymore. And that's a really scary thought for us. So the more, you know, you can support your local producer, the better. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I have one final question for you guys.
Sure.
Okay.
It's the meteor's coming for Earth. We're all going to be wiped out today.
Okay.
It's our final day on the planet.
Okay.
What's your final meal going to be?
Oh, man. It's gonna... it's like a no-brainer for him.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I mean, I eat bison meat all day long, so I mean that's a large majority of my diet, and
it's what he wants to eat.
It's what I want to eat.
It's not like something he's force feeding himself.
Yeah,
he goes anywhere.
Any special cut that's your favorite or anything like that, or there?
You know what I actually prefer, and you know it's weird for people if you tell them what it is before they eat it. Is I prefer the tongue. Believe it or not.
Okay.
And so I always keep them for myself.
It's cultural, like, you know, Mexican culture, like beef tongue is really, you know. Yeah.
I really like it. It's super tender, and I have this way that I cook it, and so that would probably be my meal right there.
Okay. Anything else with it, or just
I just like it like that with salt on it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're dying. We don't have to worry about our trigeminal nerves.
Nope.
Okay, I'm having ice cream.
Okay.
I don't care. Like he would legitimately have a steak, and I'd be like knee deep in a bowl of ice cream.
Yeah.
But it would be dairy free because I get instant reactions to dairy.
Okay.
So I would want my last hours to be productive.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. You don't want to have pain, but you still want to have a good time.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be some like coconut milk ice cream.
Not buffalo milk.
No.
Oh, that's still dairy, or no?
Well,
does that
it's
count as
still
dairy?
dairy.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm allergic to casein,
Okay.
so
Okay.
it's in a lot of dairy. It's a protein,
yeah.
so.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This has been so much fun, and I love the mission you guys have and what you're getting out there, and they're just the super high quality products. There's a lot of people jumping on the keto bandwagon they don't really care about quality. It's like, let's get stuff out as fast as we can, as cheap as we can, and make as much money. It's obvious that you guys really care about, you know, nutrient density and quality ingredients and product more than you care about like just getting everything done. And it's a testament to how smart you are and what amazing people you are, what you've been able to do in 6 months. And
awesome. Thank you very much.
Can't wait to see what's coming up next.
Yeah.
But hey, if you guys have liked this, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. We'll put all their contact info down there below in the show notes. And tell us which flavor you think you might like to try first. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.